All right, we are live. Silver Doctors live on air. It is Wednesday, the 5th day of the month of February. Excited to be back for another live stream. Mr. Half Dollar, how you doing, my friend?
Doing good today, Mike. Happy Wednesday to you. It's the 5th of February, and lots of developments over the last 5 days, and certainly over the last two since we last spoke on Silver Doctors Live.
Yes, definitely. And so I want to address one thing that I've noticed that, I paid no attention to it, but a lot of people have been. And so the idea when we introduce ourselves, I'll say my better half, and I'll point this way. And then somebody commented, Mike, you probably not want to use that because better half typically means, you guys are da-da-da-da. I'm like, yeah, okay, we're both married men. So I didn't look that deep into it. But so I would just put my other half, just other half.
Yeah, must be one of those regional things. That's funny how that works out sometimes.
Yes, sir. So with that being the case, let's check in via chat real quick and find out who's tuning in and acknowledge a couple people, and then we can get this thing rolling. So let me pop up the window. So if you see any names, feel free to go ahead and call it out while I get things set up.
Yep, absolutely. Let me give you a few shout-outs, and I appreciate everybody bearing with us. 5 minutes late again today, except, we're working on some stuff behind the scenes, and the problem is that we have to do some final tweaks right before we go live, and the final tweaks, on my end, keep failing. But anyway, we'll get that ready for Friday. No worries there, but thank you, everybody, for your patience, because we can't do the show without people participating, so that's what we like. If it wasn't for, everybody tuning in, then there wouldn't be the show. We got Paul Boyd, we got Bobby Jones, we got Big Bubs, we got Excalibur, we got Silver Junkie, we got Peter Pun 482, we got Low Blood Pressure, Finance Freak, Pabar, we got Glenn, we got Chris, we got Jason. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in today.
Yes, definitely. So let's get right into it. So, Mr. Half Dollar, what do you want to kick this off with today?
Mike, there's good news to report.
Oh, okay, that's a good thing.
The state of our union is strong.
Oh, man.
Okay. I'm serious. That's what President Trump said last night. The state of our union is strong, Mike. Forget about only the third impeachment ever in U.S. history. The state of our union is strong. I guess that means, our politicians are, doing their best to uphold the Constitution by having an impeachment. So it does show strength in the fact that they're willing to do the utmost necessary to defend the Constitution. Oh, man. It's amazing, Mike. But,
yeah.
This narrative has spilled over today, so I kind of want to talk there, and we need to do some narrative busting today. So that's kind of where I want to start, Mike.
Okay, feel free to do
you got anything you want to add? I did not watch the State of the Union address. I'm not following the Iowa caucus. None of that sort of sideshow stuff because I think it's a distraction from the real issues.
Yeah. Okay, so I did have a chance to catch probably halfway through to the end, and, a lot of the things that came across the bottom, a lot of the highlights mentioned, they end up putting on a screen. I forgot what channel I was watching, but it was one of those things where I'm like, man, it just what stood out to me that was most obvious is the complete division from the left to the right. And so you got the white coat sitting there, you got Pelosi in the back. Just I'm watching her lips move after every time Trump says something. She always looking at the left side, and if people respond, she's like, directing and being like a parent to these people. I'm thinking like, man, this is just unbelievable. And what really probably ticked me off the most is when President Trump referenced that he'll, as long as he's president, he'll stand behind, the right of the Second Amendment. And then all the Republicans stood up and clapped, and it got real loud. And then literally all the Democrats sat there looking mad. I'm thinking like, huh? I'm like, I thought they were supposed to be for the people, and the right to bear arms is should be something that everybody should be excited for, unless you have an agenda to remove guns from everybody for some particular reason. And looking at the face of the Democratic Party, none of them, to my knowledge, stood up and clapped. And I'm thinking like, wow, that is a good indication of where this country has gone. And it is not looking pretty.
It is not looking pretty. That's if we hear Constitutional Convention, I keep saying that, and I wrote that in my book that nobody's ever read and that is in dire need of proofreading. But if we hear the phrase Constitutional Convention, it's over at that point. But so we need to do some myth busting here because, the NASDAQ, that's an exchange, right? So just a general term, because some people don't really know this, but like just the general question, what is a stock market? What is the stock market? Well, there's lots of ways to call it that, right? There's your indexes, like the Dow and the S&P. Those are indexes, but people generically refer to those as the stock market. Then there's the exchanges, right? The New York Stock Exchange, the NYSE. Then there's the NASDAQ. Those are exchanges. So you can also refer to those as the stock market.
Yeah.
So one of them, right, the NASDAQ just hit a brand new all-time high yesterday, Mike. So, and the thing about the NASDAQ is that exchange, it's the tech-heavy NASDAQ. So, we have Tesla in it, which is, the main reason why I hit that all-time high yesterday. We'll talk about Tesla in a second. But it's also got Apple in it. Apple. Think about this. This is why I want to do some myth busting here. Let me send you a couple links. The first one is just to actually my midweek update this morning. And it's just got a couple things about Apple in there.
Yeah.
So think about this, right? The stock market just hit a brand new all-time high. And on February 1st, Apple shut down every single store and corporate office in China.
Yeah.
Every single store and corporate office, right? So how is that good for Apple? How is that good for the NASDAQ? It's not, right? That was on February 1st. And then we also learned, and actually I didn't put this in my update there, but, oh yeah, I did. Okay. So then from Reuters, right? So this is the next one from Reuters. All I did was link to it. I didn't take a screen grab of it. But when we're talking about Reuters on February the 3rd, exclusive outbreak to hit iPhone output if China extends the Foxconn factory halt. So not only are the Apple retail stores shut down, not only are the Apple offices shut down, but like Foxconn is shut down, right? And what does Foxconn do? They manufacture the components and they manufacture the finished product. They manufacture the iPhones itself.
Yeah.
So how is any of this good news for the stock market? None of this is good news for the stock market, Mike. In the simplest terms, if somebody is in the market for a new smartphone, for a new iPhone, if the availability is just not there, or if they're going for over retail price, which can happen, right? We saw that in 2017 with the graphics card when the Bitcoin went on that parabolic rise. We saw stuff selling over retail, even though arguably Apple is still expensive. But none of this is really good news for the stock market, right? But there we go. Sure enough, hitting these all-time highs again. I'll stop there for a second and let you add some thoughts.
So my question is, so it looks like, because I actually also saw some numbers that came out for some of the other entertainment. So I think Snap, like the Snap phone, the app was down significantly, and I think Netflix growth stopped, and no new subscribers, and so all the FANG stocks, all the technology, more so entertainment companies are kind of leading the way, it seems. And so I'm curious to find out, outside of Tesla opening up a warehouse in China, the Gigafactory in China, I believe, which more than likely is probably shut down right now as well, or they probably stopped some developments on that because of the virus situation. And so once again, what's outside of these FANG stocks, Facebook, Apple's, Netflix, Google's, and all that, and YouTube made a $15.5 billion off ad revenue. Like, I'm like thinking like, man, and we're getting jerked. So I'm like, where all that ad revenue going? But so there is no true, even the stocks that have been positioned to be the leading indicators, they're not really doing well. So how is Tesla leading the way? What exactly is going on there? Have you dived into that?
No, it's just a pure mania, pure and simple. And actually, Dave Kranzler and I dived into this yesterday on our interview. But do you still have that article from yesterday? Because it's got the Tesla chart in there.
I do not.
Yesterday.
I do not.
But Mike, Tesla went absolutely parabolic, and there's no way you can explain it other than the fact that it's an absolute mania. It's a mania. That's the only way to describe it. Not even 7 months ago, right? On June 3rd, well, I guess it's 7 months and 2 days now. On June 3rd, 2019, that stock was under $180. And yesterday it shot above like $950 or something like that. And the chart just went vertical if you look at it on a daily chart. It's in that midweek article update that I did, although there's a ton of charts there. So you'd have to scroll down to find it. Although just look for the one that looks like Bitcoin 2017 and you'll find it. But so there's no reason behind it other than pure mania. And I was, talking with Dave about this, and this is just the result of what we've created in the stock market, because, Tesla's production right in China is going to have a problem. They're also saying that it could cause a problem with the production here in the United States because of the supply issues in China. So there's nothing fundamentally good for Tesla. Tesla is what they consider a growth stock. And Dave Kranzer was going over the numbers yesterday, and the numbers are absolutely horrible. And it's like not even not growth, but it's like the opposite of growth.
Yeah.
So there is no reason behind this other than just pure public mania. And
yeah. So I got on the screen now just an article. I just typed in Tesla stock, and of course, like one of the leading articles today is, it says Tesla is up 112% this year. Here's how the other electric car makers are doing. And so once again, they probably give their explanation as to why that is. But I also saw something, I think it was on Monday, that Ford stock took a hit on Monday after reports of slowdown, this and that, whatever. And so I'm thinking, like, once again, Ford stock, I'm not sure what it was, but I know it's relatively low. It's been trending downward. That dip in their share price does not really help the old manufacturers, as far as like the Fords, the GMs, and whatnot, that's been struggling trying to convert to the electrical vehicle format. So, So once again, my philosophy is wherever our car manufacturers in the Motor City goes, our nation goes. So, it wasn't good news for Ford, but.
That's a good point. And like Dave was saying, stuff like the Model X and the Model S might not even be around as models anymore because they're just not really selling that much at all to make it worthwhile. So
you talk about Model X and for the Tesla?
For the Tesla, for the Tesla, not for the Ford. So let's stick on this narrative, because the narrative is, and there's two narratives, right? So one is that it's a booming economy, and the other one is that the stocks are rallying. And here's an article from this morning. And listen to this. This is just nothing more than speculation. So I'm just going to read this this one paragraph here, and you got to kind of scroll down a little bit. But it says, I'm losing where I was finding it here. Where was it? Anyway, in this article, okay, traders attributed the turnaround also to a Chinese TV report saying that Zhejiang University team found some drugs that could inhibit the coronavirus in vitro cell experiments. Reuters has not confirmed the veracity of the report. So all this is just rumor and hearsay, and maybe there's something that could work as a treatment, but who knows? So this is the reason why the stock market is rallying. You know, it's like, this is not what's going on. I want to show you another Reuters article, and it just talks about companies that are feeling the brunt of this.
Yeah.
And, you know, we talk about this is going to start having an effect. And this is interesting because we're already talking about a turnaround in the stock market, but really the effects of this Wuhan coronavirus haven't even begun being felt just yet.
Yeah.
So this article is called Companies Feel the Impact of the Coronavirus and Outbreak. If you scroll down here, you're going to see a ton of companies, and you're going to see a ton of like multinationals, a lot of them with, you know, traditionally American types of companies. Apple, that's one of them. Jaguar, Levi, well, that's not American. Actually, I don't know what Jaguar's under right now. Levi Strauss, McDonald's, just companies in general are struggling because of this. One of the things that it says is for one of the airlines, and I think that was in for one of the airlines, and it was one of the Hong Kong Airlines, 27,000 employees are asked to take 3 weeks of unpaid leave.
Really?
American Airlines is now stopping all flights into Hong Kong. So not just anymore just into China, but now also to Hong Kong itself.
Yeah.
Hyundai is the first car manufacturer outside of China to halt production. Hyundai has halted production. Do you see what I mean? My point is that this is going to have huge effects on the supply chain, and it's barely just starting, right? And it's kind of like your pantry, right? Like you got a little bit of food in the pantry, but sooner or later you're going to keep eating. Yeah. And if you don't replenish that food in the pantry, well, there's no more supply anymore. So this is just, the point is that they're painting a rosy picture, but it's about to get even worse.
Right. So watch this. So here's some interesting news that should be somewhat of a indicator at the false narrative of how good the equities markets is doing. So I scroll down that same article, and it says Tesla warned a 1 to 1.5 week delay in ramping up the production of its Shanghai-built Model 3 cars could slightly hurt March quarter profits after China ordered a shutdown of the factory. So Tesla stocks rallying but yet they're shutting down production a week and a half, which they're saying could slow down the March quarter profits after China forced them to shut down. So once again, that wouldn't be necessarily news that would lead Tesla stock to go up. You would probably say, okay, well, they're admitting that it's going to hurt profits for the quarter in March. Wouldn't you just probably rethink that a little bit? But obviously, yeah. So clearly, there's a false narrative being given by the mainstream media, and then there's some illicit funds coming from somewhere to prop things up. And so what's the likelihood that it's central bank induced?
Yeah,
outside of all the QE we know about.
Exactly. And to get back onto the Apple point one more time, because in my update this morning, when they were talking about, Apple may or may not, they were talking about there had been 200 and some deaths out of the last, where is this? Well, I guess I didn't put it in. Oh, yeah, okay. So far, it has killed at least 259 people and infected 12,000. So that was what they were talking about Apple on February 1st. The death toll has doubled since then. The number of cases have doubled since then, and you're only talking about 4 days later, right? So the situation is not getting better. In fact, the situation is getting worse. Just last night, we put up an article on Silver Doctors about Alibaba, right? Basically, the Amazon of China is shut down because that whole section is shut down now. More cities are going under lockdown. 24 million people in China just got placed under quarantine. But I want to show you how the MSM is spinning it here. Do we got a call?
Oh, we do not. So I forgot to check in to make sure. So if you guys want to call and give us a call, we should be good to go. So having some issues with the Wi-Fi, but go ahead.
Yes, I want to show about how the MSM is spinning this. So here's CNN. So for those in quarantine at this U.S. airbase, it's Zumba classes, it's sandwiches, and it's our downtime. Hey, it's party. So I'm reading this, and I'm thinking, welcome to FEMA Camp USA. You're going to love it here. So this is when, they welcome everybody to FEMA Camp USA. If you scroll down this, it's this guy 2 weeks in limbo, right? And he was in Wuhan because he was playing professional football in the city of Wuhan. Mm-hmm. But look at a couple of the things that they lead you to talk about, right? Yeah. So, some of the things that it says in here is that, they're doing practical things like providing people with laptops so they can work. They're providing mental health services in addition to any kind of doctor services where they check them a couple times a day. Food, yeah, it's usually something simple, but it's like eggs and sausage and muffins. I mean, I'd like to eat bacon and eggs every single day of the week. You know what I'm saying? Anybody who's getting military food on a military base, you're eating good, Yeah. So it's like they're just making, this is great. It's just a couple-week quarantine. We're bringing in movies and activities for the kids. You're going to love it here. So this is the seed that's being planted in the mainstream media. So, and I keep jumping around and I keep rambling, but that's just because there's so many different areas to look at. Yeah. So here's one thing to look at, right? This is why I say that it's misfounded. The CDC, they just now updated this because I've been checking all morning and they hadn't updated this, but they just now updated this right now. Yeah. But the CDC is now investigating only 293. So the number's only gone up 33 people since 2 days ago. Yeah. They're still waiting on 76 tests to come back. So they're horribly behind just in the testing in and of itself. That number's been in the 70s for quite a while. Yeah. So my point is this, right? The MSM is so quick to point it out. Okay, fear's over, scare's over. Everything's going to get back to normal. But, I mean, this is barely even starting. What happens if the total number of people under investigation shoots up? What happens if the number of cases shoot up? What happens if another state gets added to the list, right? Yeah. All of these things could spark another turn down in the stock market, a spike up in volatility, and spell problems for the markets, which is why, of course, we talk about the PPT and the Fed and the ESF and they're propping things up. Yeah. But I want to say something about too, but I'm going to stop. So.
All right. So watch this. Last night after watching the State of the Union address, the news came on, 10 o'clock news, I believe it was. And sure enough, the leading story was the possibility of a case in the Detroit Metro Airport. And so apparently I was listening to some of the people share their concerns. And of course, I guess the person who flew into Detroit, they said they showed symptoms of the coronavirus with excessive coughing. And so due to excessive coughing, the person was hauled off to the hospital for a check or whatever. So I'm thinking okay, due to the symptoms. So once again, excessive coughing. It could have been they could have had something large in their throat. I mean, you never really know. But just my first impression was, so at this point, if someone does anything that's labeled abnormal, it could be labeled as a symptom, and then you can then be isolated and quarantined and then rushed off, probably against your own will. Like if you say, no, I'm fine, but if you just showed some signs and somebody in the TSA or whoever thought it was like, okay, we got a scare now, and perhaps they have a list of things they're supposed to check for, and if you check off any one of those things there, you are now a person that is possibly contaminated, and they gotta rush you off. And so just that one case that flew into Detroit last night, everybody was interviewed. Taxi drivers were interviewed. They were saying, yeah, I'm concerned. Whenever I get done taking somebody, I have to wipe down the car and things like that. So I'm like, they're putting fear out there by talking about these scenarios, even if it's just a cough. So usually coughs is just results of a lot of things, but I was like, man, here we go.
Yeah, exactly. And to take that one step further, what does that tell people? That tells people, hey, if you have a cough or sniffles or something, people are going to do anything and they can to make it not look like they have any symptom whatsoever. Mm-hmm. So that in and of itself is also bad, because if someone is actually truly sick and they try to hide it, then this just isn't good any way around. Did we talk about Uber yesterday in Mexico? I can't remember where I saw that story about Uber, but apparently something's starting to happen in Latin America, because we were talking that how weird is it that there's no case in Latin America or Mexico, but apparently Uber in Mexico, there's a suspicious person, and they were in contact with 240 different people that this person, but if you go down the chain, came in contact with.
Yeah.
So just some stuff to throw out there,
Let's check into the chat real quick. And as always, if you guys have thoughts, highlight at Silver Doctors. We'll definitely touch on it. And
someone did highlight. Low blood pressure did. He said, Paul, I think they're eating Air Force chow, so they're eating shrimp and steak. That's right, Mike. The Air Force, they're they're basically civilians. They got really long hair, and whenever you see anybody in the Air Force, they're always happy, right? And it's wow, how are you guys like this? And it's you see the Marines and they're always just getting terrible, and then you see the Army and they're just getting run into the dirt nonstop. But that's a funny comment there.
So on another note, in regards to the State of the Union address, a couple other things that stood out, and infrastructure. And so it looks like there will be, I think he mentioned about some type of legislation passed, basically upon the promises he ran upon, infrastructure spending, roads, bridges, putting people to work. And so I'm hearing about every suggestion that was given comes with a huge dollar sign to it of how are we going to do this? So he's I'm trying to instruct Congress to pass or whatever bill to dedicate this amount of billions to roads and billions and billions. And I'm thinking man, that's a lot of funds they're putting to use. Wow, where's that coming from? Because we don't have a savings account. Yeah. So I'm thinking this infrastructure package, which is probably going to be rolled out. I think both Democrats and Republicans stood up and cheered. One of the few times they all agreed on something. So I'm here we go. Here's $100 billion package about to be put through for roads and bridges, which will keep the economy great, of course, because people will be working. Then he talks about pulling people off of welfare or whatnot. I think he threw out a number 700,000 people were pulled off welfare because they are doing better now, and touting out that the African American community could never have been greater. They're making more, earning more. I'm thinking what community are you in, my friend? So it's just more stuff that was thrown out there, and he tried to put some facts on top of it as to why everything is so good. So I'm okay, well, that's a clear sign to me. It's time to buckle down for real, because if everybody agreeing it's good, I know it's not good. Yeah, I need to do the opposite.
And it's interesting. The timing is uncanny. I didn't know about the infrastructure. So apparently we're going to start talking about that again. So that's going to be boosting the stock market, right? Because he's going to be leading on his infrastructure spend, in addition to another tax cut, and in addition to all this other stuff. Which reminds me, just today, I haven't looked this up just yet, but just today, supposedly, is when we get the details on the brand new $20, the brand new 20-year bond. Remember that? Yeah. The United States government is coming out with a brand new bond. So, it's not like we don't have enough T-bills and notes and bonds anyway. We got to have more. So, it's easy to finance all this stuff if you just create new bonds. You got a 20-year now. They're going to get details on today. Roll out that 50, roll out that 100, and let's just spend some more. One of the problems is that that first year, yes, the number of pages in the Federal Register went down. But after that very first year, 2017, they're going back up again. Number of federal employees are going back up again. And in addition to not making government smaller, government is just getting bigger.
So clearly, all the suggestions thrown out that he wants to have Congress sign off on equals bigger government, because all those funds will probably they'll be creating new institutions to run those funds and disperse those funds. And once the funds are created and put out into existence, they're never accounted for. The work never gets done to a good quality of standard. Just like I remember Obama's solar program. I remember reading years after the fact, all those solar companies that they put millions into, within a couple months they went under, they folded, but all those funds was transferred somewhere.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Man.
That's right. That's exactly right. So I've been trying to think about this, right? Because the common answer that people get is, well, they have to keep the stock market propped up because it's going to crash the economy. But I'm trying to think of how we can think about this differently, because I do think we need to think about it differently. And this isn't very pretty of an example, but I think about it like this. You got 4 people in a room, right? And one of them is brain dead, and he's hooked up to oxygen, and he's hooked up to a feeding tube, and he's hooked up to intravenous fluids, and they got the machine in there just keeping him alive. Then you got one person who's a healthy, able-bodied person, but they need oxygen. You got one person who's a healthy, able-bodied person, but they need an IV every once in a while because they have diabetes. And then you got another healthy person who just needs to eat and they're healthy. But you're only giving food to the brain dead person. You're only giving oxygen to the brain dead person, and you're only giving IVs to the brain dead person. Do you see what I'm saying? We do not need to keep this stock market propped up. That is not helping anything. All we're doing is keeping the brain dead person on life support, and we're prohibiting other able-bodied people who could otherwise pull ourselves out of this mess from getting what they need to be able to do that, Mike.
All right, now watch this. So there might be some people out there saying that that analogy of people needing the support but yet really being healthy, that can literally be, to me personally, the baby boomer generation, and the fact that they were promised and they were told that if they followed that narrative of putting funds aside, and I had a guest on the show yesterday about talking about the baby boomer generation are the predominant holders of the mutual fund products that have been spun out. And so they are the ones that, rightfully so, are expecting to be able to withdraw for the remainder of their lives at a time where monetary policy has already turned the investing world upside down, to where those people would be the people that are expecting something, but yet it's not really even there. So if we were to make things right for the future generation, for our kids, and just basically say, let's just stop all this hocus pocus nonsense, financial illusion, and reboot the system, start over, or whatever, that'll be trillions upon trillions that will be transferred or lost that they'll never receive. That's right. Which will give our younger kids a chance to even have somewhat of a decent quality of life moving forward. So it's like, what's more important at this point? Do you renege on all those promises and disappoint an entire generation of people? Or do you start doing something where we concern ourselves with the younger and the unborn? So that'd be something where if you are on the receiving end, you're not trying to give up everything. But if you're unborn, you would hope that them people will be willing to sacrifice.
Exactly. So that's why I keep saying that everybody's just going to fight for that very last crumb. So we're all going to go down fighting, and that's sad because, if you think about it, there's several generations alive today. There's the silent generation. That's my mom's generation, right? And because she's older. But they're dying off, and there's pretty soon not going to be anybody left in the silent generation. Then there's the baby boomers. Then there's our generation, Generation X. Then there's the millennials. And then there's, I don't know what's after, it's Z or Y. I can't remember which one. I get my letters mixed up after so many.
X, Y, Z, I don't know.
But just thinking about it in that terms, you work to save one generation, but you just ruin everything else for the 3 that are under it. Or you say, sorry, you bought into the mainstream lies and the propaganda and the deception, but we're going to give the other 3 generations a fighting chance. I don't know. It's a hard question to answer. Well, the point is, it's not easy. But the longer we wait to deal with our problems, we're just going to implode from the inside.
Yeah. So quick thought, low blood pressure. I missed your call. Give me a call back. And so with that note there's going to be pain either way. So there's going to be a loss on all parties, because at this current moment, there's no easy way of solving a 100-year plus old problem. And it's the very concept of central banking, debt-based monetary system, fractional reserve lending, and just the use of our government having abdicated control of our financial matters into the hands of institutions that they're doing exactly what they're put in place to do, which is to drain the wealth of the middle class especially, and all workers in general. So our system has been hijacked, and there's no way of bringing it back. So there's going to be pain regardless. It's just, I wish we could get to the brass tacks of it and actually address the true issues, which is the monetary system itself and everything to do with it. But that'll never come about. So, we'll just be talking for no reason.
No, not until, because politicians won't do it, because they won't say what needs to be said, right? All they want to do is lie and say everything is great. I don't want to be told that Santa Claus is going to bring me presents. I want to be told that Santa Claus doesn't exist. Tough it up and figure it out.
Yeah, and another thing is watching the State of the Union, just, when they do the crowd scan and to see who's standing up, who's sitting down. A couple things is I was looking at the Supreme Court judges. I was trying to, they were just glance by quickly. I was trying to give a count because the older young lady, I think was it Gaynor Baines Ruth or whatever, or whoever the oldest one is who's having health issues.
Ginsburg.
I don't think I saw her. I mean, I could be wrong, but I was looking because apparently she's missing in action for a while now, but I could be wrong. But I was looking, and we do have a call, so let's take this and then we'll go from there. Hello, caller. What's your name? Where you calling from?
How you doing, Mike? It's low blood pressure from Corpus Christi, Texas. How you guys doing today?
Doing good, my friend. Good to hear your voice. What's on your mind?
All right, I just want to give a quick comment. I like Paul's analogy. I want to give him my own.
Okay, go ahead.
I think this market is like the Black Knight and Mighty Python. He's fighting somebody. He's missing his legs. He's missing his arms, and the guy thinks he's still winning. I don't know if you guys seen that movie. Tell me what you guys think.
I have not seen it. Blood pressure. You know what Paul. You know what he's talking about?
Yeah.
All right. So Paul, go answer.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah. We got you. Paul's gonna answer that off air. You got anything else you want to share?
No, that's it. Thanks, guys.
All right, my friend. Thanks for calling in. All right, go ahead, man.
I might be getting the scene exactly messed up, but it's like someone's coming across a bridge to cross, and like there's this knight, and he's dressed in black, and he's standing up, he's got a shield and his shield and his sword, and he goes, "None shall pass," and then like we're going through there, and then they start fighting, and they like cut off the guy's arm, and he's like, "Okay, let us pass now," and he's like, "No big deal." And then he starts fighting again, and he cuts off his other arm, and he's like, "We can pass now. You can't even fight." He's like, "No, I'll bite your legs off." And then they cut off his legs. And so they just like keep cutting his guy up. And he's like, "You're not getting through. You're not getting through. This is fine. I can still fight." And he's like just a stump at the end of it. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of what we're looking at here. It's just like, or Baghdad Bob. That's another example. Or that one scene from that, what's that one movie, that Naked Gun or whatever it is, where everything's like the firework factory's blowing up. He's like, "There's nothing to see here. There's nothing to see here. Move along." So yeah, that's exactly what we have.
Man. Okay, so appreciate you calling in with that thought. And so my last thought on the State of the Union address, and just observing the crowd and seeing all the so-called elected officials, and I'm thinking like majority of those people there, they're lifelong political figures, apart from some of the newbies there. And you got the white coat movement. You got all those ladies sitting there in white coats. You got the Democrats, right? So I'm watching this, and I'm thinking like, man, these are our so-called representatives for our country. Like, and me personally, I'm like, I don't have no confidence or no trust in any of those individuals. And it's like, man, like we kind of have no choice but to just listen and watch this whole, it's a clown fest. I mean, it's like one of the things where I'm thinking like everybody in our auditorium is, they came in from the private sector or private sector a long time ago, and now they're public servants, but they're all extremely wealthy. Like they're millionaires. And I'm thinking like the salaries for, representatives is, maybe six figures, maybe 100,000 if that. But how did they accumulate millions? Like, it's good to say majority of those people there are millionaires, and they have accumulated their wealth through special interests and basically having sold out our country for special interests and everything like that. I'm thinking like something has to give. That's not something that I'm confident in whatsoever. So, when it comes to voting, I've never been really a voter for anybody because none of them are operating our best interests. So
yeah, and it's when you hear him talk, I mean, that's why I can barely stomach any of it on the federal level. Because you hear him talking, it's just like, what planet are you on? It's like, what are you talking about? I mean, they could like a tree could be burning down in front of them, and they could be like, "Look at this beautiful blooming tree," and it's like, how are you saying that it's burning down in front of you? So, Mike, when we ended the year, I think I put the word famine in one of our show titles. But one of my themes this year that I'm watching is food price inflation. But have you been following this locust plague in Africa at all? I'm just now kind of starting to follow it, but apparently there's like the UN is calling it like emergencies in some countries that they're having like these locust problems, and they're like devastating crops in Africa, and they're starting to talk famine this year in Africa. So we talk about all of the different food issues, and all last year we were talking about food issues. With every season, there was food issues. And look at this. Now we're in winter, and lo and behold, we still got – we're in winter here in the United States. I mean, depending on what the season is in other places as well. But the point is that every season we're having new food issues come up somewhere around the world. So I'm kind of really watching this still. Although if, this Wuhan coronavirus thins out the herd, then, I mean, I guess it doesn't matter anyway. But
yeah. Man. So it's one of those things where – what could be next? Like, what's coming next? Like, where is all this heading? And in regards to this virus situation, as this stuff picks up, and there's no cure, no way of treating it, no way of really truly diagnosing it. Like, the powers that be, whoever released this, clearly, I'm starting to get the vibe that they want this to probably be the door opening to the rebooting of our system, because with China shutting down, clearly, within the next couple weeks, months, we're going to really hear and see the side effects of that. Therefore, Federal Reserve is going to have to respond with more drought rate cuts and more outright stimulus and stuff like that. So it's only going to speed up the race to the end of this current monetary paradigm we're in. And so right now, expect more artificial stock price boosting, while price of metals might stay stagnant, or they may lose control along the way, because it's going to be hard to raise that asset class and not have metals go up as well, because those that are aware will eventually going to want to get out of that artificially induced stock market and get into something tangible. Now we'll see if supplies is readily available at a cheaper price. So yeah, I don't know,
so we will. So great points. So I guess we could dial it back here. I don't have anything else to cover today other than 1750 in silver has been holding, and 1550 in gold has been holding. So
yeah.
I'm not confident to call that a floor, except I don't think that there's much downside below 17 in silver and much downside below 15 in gold. I would look at those, especially in silver. Anything under 17 is a back up the truck moment. But, because just like you said, how is it in the world that every single thing in the world is going up in price except silver, and it's going down in price? I mean, it just makes no sense whatsoever. Yeah. And that's another thing I wrote about this morning. Space Force. That's going to need a whole lot of silver. And then just think about the silver uses in biomedicine. And if this new disease stuff and designer viruses and all this and all that, well, guess what? That's also going to increase silver demand and use in biomedicine. So, all of this is fundamentally bullish for silver one way or another. So, and here we sit, and it's just, allowing people to average in at better prices and allowing people to get their weight up at better entry points.
Yeah. And so last little thought I want to mention is that, and someone in a comment referenced the Georgia guide stones. And so I've never really, apart from just, of course, coming across a variety of things, never really went too deep into it. And so I thought I would just end off with just highlighting some of the inscriptions of those stones that kind of give like an insight, I guess, to the world order, to what the powers would be want or whatnot. So it's out right in front of our faces. And so I would just call off a couple things here. It says a message, I got it up on the screen from Wikipedia. It says a message consisting of a set of 10 guidelines or principles engraved on the Georgia guide stones in 8 different languages, one language on each face of the 4 large upright stones. And the one is maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature. It says guide reproduction wisely, unite humanity with a living new language, rule passion, faith, tradition, protect people and nations from laws, let all nations rule internally, resolving avoid petty laws, balance personal rights with social duties, prize truth, be not a cancer on the earth. Like just that whole thing there is very spooky in nature. Because whoever put that there and allowed that to remain there shows a little bit of the agenda, but yet just the very first one, maintain a humanity in balance of 500 million. Yeah. And we're well beyond that point. So if that's their goal, to get to 500 million, that's a good, was it 7 points or 6.5 billion people, or give or take, that is not in the equation. So
do you remember that tsunami in Indonesia like several years ago? That really devastating one. But it was around the Christmas, and I want to say it was either like 216. Maybe it wasn't even 2016. Maybe I'm thinking it was like 2006 or something. I mean, it was after Katrina, so it had to have been after that. But it was that tsunami over in Indonesia, and literally like 100,000 people died in this tsunami. But like, the point is, we could be set to be seeing like die-offs of the human population and massive scales, like million people dying off out of pop. I mean, this is some really unprecedented stuff that we're talking about, and especially if there is a push behind these Georgia Guidestones. Oh my goodness. Because just naturally we can be facing these die-offs just this year, right?
Yeah.
You bring up a good point. We're going to have to kind of look into that a little bit more to go down those rabbit holes as this year progresses and as things unfold.
Yeah. So with that being the case, everybody, that is it for this live stream. Appreciate everybody for taking time to join us. If you've enjoyed the back and forth, don't be afraid to donate a thumbs up beneath this video, and then share this information so more people can find out about it, because once again, you got two gentlemen giving their opinions based upon our analysis and data that's been given. We're not reading off teleprompters, therefore it's straight from the heart. So anyway, be blessed, be safe. See you guys on Friday. Peace.